Welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I don't know what, I guess we are, it's officially Merry Christmas now, right, Cayden?
Yeah.
So today, I've got Cayden Ridgeway with me with Milestone. We are talking technology and AI. Cayden, I didn't actually tell you this in advance. I meant to say this, but one of the things that really excites me about having you as a guest is that I realize there is this old guard of senior living, my age people. We're starting to see some of us retire and some of us probably should go away, but haven't yet. And you represent this brand new generation, new thinking, new ways of doing things. And I'm just excited to be able to learn from you and hear your ideas, because I know that you're going to take this amazing foundation that we have built, that operators have built, and transform it into something better than we could have ever imagined. But before we get started, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Cayden, welcome. Let's start with a little bit about who you are and who Milestone is.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. So obviously I'm Cayden Ridgeway. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Milestone Retirement. And then Milestone is now a family-owned operator, mostly on the West Coast, but we have some properties in Colorado and Oklahoma, Arizona, Nevada, sprinkled in, but mostly California, Oregon, and Washington.
And you're based out of Portland?
Yeah. So we were in Vancouver. Okay. Now have our main office in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is where my family lives. But we still have our satellite office in Vancouver.
Terrific. Yeah. So I'm going to actually start with a random question that I didn't warn you about because I just thought about it nice. as I was thinking about you. So your generation gets bashed a lot. Mm-hmm. They're lazy. They don't want to work hard. They feel privileged. How do you react to that? How do you feel when you hear that stuff?
I don't hear that stuff. I am the opposite of that for sure. I'm kind of obsessive and really, really driven. So I don't hear a lot of that in my group, but I know that it's a thing a lot of people say. And I do not necessarily disagree at large. I think it depends on where you're at and kind of the groups that you're coming into contact with. I know a lot of people that I grew up with that are that way, that aren't necessarily doing a lot or anything like that. But at least in my group, we're pretty driven.
That's cool. And Jada, who's producing this behind the scenes, is probably a little younger than you, but sort of more in your bracket. And she's one of the hardest working people I know, who does an amazing job as part of our team. So let's talk a little bit about how you view the role of technology in senior living.
So broadly, to me, I think the role of technology is hopefully threefold. If it's a good platform and a good company, you're solving or enhancing the residents' experience. You're enhancing the employee experience. And then you're also going to, hopefully, with both of those, if you've done both of those right, you're going to optimize your operations really well. And so the role broadly, for the way I look at it, is hopefully technology accomplishes those three things if it's the right product. And it further, to me, it's the backbone of everything we're going to be able to do. We're not going to be able to deliver what we want to deliver as a company if we are not adopting technology on the forefront of it and utilizing it to the furthest extent that we can utilize it, really.
So when a vendor, we obviously work with a number of vendors who are looking to sell products and services to people like you. And they are always frustrated because they feel like operators in general are very much pushing back on them and holding back. But I also know that from an operator's standpoint, you are just having people pile on and pile on and pile on. How do you sort of figure out who you're going to talk to, who you're going to work with, what's going to make the lives of your team members, the lives of your residents, your organization better?
So there's so many different veins of technology, to me at least. So we have community technology or softwares that are going to be in place at the community. Then we have home office technology or services that are going to be offered and utilized at our level to manage the community or to supplement something within our own operations that we don't necessarily want to do. Finance, HR, one of those, marketing. So how we look at it is we need to decide, and we do decide, what we're really good at and what we don't want to give up to an outside vendor. HR, marketing, we brought in-house recently. That's something I don't want to give up. We're going to run that internally. So there are things like that. And then for a community, we want the fewest amount of softwares, again, utilized at the highest rate. I don't want to just add, and the team feels the same way. We don't want to just add all of these things on and throw things at a wall in a different community. We want to take time, do our due diligence, and be really, really thoughtful and ensure that who we're partnering with, we feel is the best we can set foot with, So we go through that routinely. Obviously, we're always getting bombarded with it. So
yeah, it's and I think that as I look at it and I sort of try to wear an operator's hat, the big question I have is how do you use technology in a way that'll make particularly your community level folks' job easier and better, right? Yep. And I worry a lot that technology can get in the way of it becomes so consuming of staff time and maybe more importantly staff energy. As you know, I'm living the journey as a senior living consumer right now with my stepfather. He's in an assisted living community. And it hasn't been a great experience, but one of the things that's really been fascinating to me is they use one of the check-in, check-out systems that is really good. They use the AccuShield. It's a great system, right. But they don't enforce it. So I walk into the door, and I used to be really faithful about checking in, but then I watch and nobody else is checking in, nobody checking out. I walk through the hallways. I don't have a badge on, and I'm just a family member, right? And I'm some random person. And so I think it's because too much work for the staff to do it, and so they don't do it, and it's not part of the culture, and it probably makes things worse, to say nothing of the money they're spending. They are really, really good if you're taking a resident out, making sure you log them in and out. So that part's probably the most important for sure.
Yeah, man, I love AccuShield. We use it. And our team, we really don't have that. You could go to any of our communities, and I'm extremely confident that you'll get told to check in every time. Carol routinely will walk into a community unannounced and just blow right by the AccuShield kiosk to see if our front desk stop her, and they do, and they know that that's the standard, is that we utilize it, and yeah.
Yeah, and they should, right? I as somebody who has a loved one there, I kind of want that to happen. So anyway, okay, let's talk about AI. Sort of my favorite button. I know it's something you're really passionate about. Let's start with where you see AI, where you guys are using AI right now.
So actual field use, very little. So in actual field use, like I said, it's very little. Now, internally, the development of it for field use is happening very quickly, and we're doing that across a number of different platforms. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing, why we don't have everything in the field yet. So back to the technology piece, I don't want to ever release something that has the means to get into the community and fail because we didn't do our due diligence in launching it correctly in the first place, or we didn't think through what it was going to actually be like for them to use. And so we get it out there. We have all these problems, adoption rate tanks, and we struggle to get it relaunched again. We don't want that. And so we're spending a lot of time, and we have an in-house team at Milestone that's a cross-functional team that really pressure tests any AI ideas we have. And that is made up of community members and home office members from across the company.
Yep.
So they've been selected by us. There's very few of them. It's a team of under 11. There's 10. And so that's the team that actually, when we have an idea that we're working on, like a assistant of some kind for compliance or a assistant for sales, we've built both of those. And when we have that, we want that to be pressure tested. We did the same thing with a resident assistant. And none of those are launched because there's a lot of refinement that goes into making sure that AI isn't going to go left field and do something because we missed it somewhere in teaching it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's really tough, right? Because if you played with it, I mean, I know you've experienced this. If you're playing with Claude or ChatGPT, which are the ones I tend to use the most, sometimes you'll ask it to do something, and it just goes off, and you go, did I really write an instruction set that was that bad?
Yeah.
And you're talking about people's lives. So can you talk maybe a little bit about some areas where you see kind of the low-hanging fruits? And you talk a little bit about, resident assistant and those kinds of things. So do you have specific applications that you're working on that you're willing to talk about?
Yep. Yeah. I'm happy to talk about whatever. So the assistants are the biggest thing to me that I think are pretty easy. Number one, I guess the easiest one would be to have AI in whatever platform you use. So like if you use Microsoft, get Copilot and get Copilot in so that you can start maybe holding some trainings on how do you prompt it to get what you need if you're struggling to come up with X marketing thing or sales thing or a text or an email and you want a sounding board. I use AI a lot more as a sounding board than a replacement of a function. So I want to give it an idea and ask it to shoot holes in whatever I'm thinking. Does it see something that I don't see? And so that's number one. And then the assistant bots are kind of the next thing. Because for an operator, as we have increasing costs and capital incoming staying relatively the same, we can't expand or add all of the things we need to continue to improve our service delivery. So we can't just add people to our ops team if we're not able to increase the amount we're making, right? That we all get that. And so I think the assistants give us a good way of replacing parts of what we would use an ops team for our community staff. So instead of constantly going to somebody and asking questions or a guide somewhere or looking it up, having a compliance bot where we take California state regulations, Milestone state or Milestone California clinical policies, right? We combine them together in a bot, we teach it, we train it, and then that person can ask any series of questions related to compliance, and it's going to reference both of those to give them the answer. I think that's a big, low-hanging fruit area that can be tackled.
Well, and the thing I really like about that is that after you've had something like that implemented for some period of time, you can then go back and say, okay, what are and I think there are two ways to approach this. You could look at it and say, okay, what are the things that people are asking about over and over again? And so do we need to create some specific training for that?
Yeah.
Or maybe on the flip side of that is you've got areas that nobody's ever asking about, and you start to think maybe that's an area we need to be talking about because nobody's really thinking about it and should be thinking about. And so I think that the educational opportunities to just get smarter about that stuff is amazing. And the idea that you have a bot that you can talk, so you can ask, so you don't necessarily need to go to a regional or a C-suite person, and that frees up their time to do more productive things. So I love that.
It also the thing I like about that is it frees up time, and it also frees up the reactionary response we're going to have if you don't ask, and you don't have that at your disposal.
That's right. Yeah.
You make a decision that we have to go back then and spend X man hours in remedying. So I don't know. I think it also allow you to run a tighter ship that everybody's a lot more comfortable on in totality, community staff included.
Yeah. So one of the areas that I used it recently that's in the same vein is that, as you know, and I'm going to talk about this for a minute, we've got the Foresight AI Lab coming up next month in Las Vegas. And it's going to be essentially 2 days, be over 3 days, a half day, full day, half day, where we're going to do deep dive into using AI in senior living. And I got this hotel contract. And so I'm looking at this hotel contract and I'm thinking there's so much stuff in it and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I could go to my attorney, but honestly, I'm not so worried about the legal terms. I'm mostly worried about the negotiable stuff. And he's going to have no idea. He's going to be no more help than I am because he's not negotiating these contracts. And so I ran it into ChatGPT and I said, tell me what I need to go back and negotiate on. And it gave me like 18 things. Not all of them were the right things to do, but it probably saved $30,000 or $40,000 on the contract amount because of that. And it would be almost impossible to find a human who could do that for me.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like that. We've recently just tested a really, really different AI solution. It's called Palmyra. It's made by Ryder, and it's incredibly impressive. More than GPT and Claude, and it's an enterprise AI. And we've been working with this a little bit, messing around with it. And we took financials and ran an entire community financials through it and said, okay, where this was you, don't send it. We're not going to send it to our finance team. We're going to send it to this one bot that we've trained. Tell us what you see as opportunities for revenue enhancement and where do you see that and to what degree? And it couldn't recommend what to do with the information, but it found it. It found the areas that it saw opportunity in, and then you can take that and drop it into Claude and say, okay, knowing this, what would you do to address that? And it gets really interesting because it's things you don't think of.
Yeah, I think that kind of process areas where, right now, mostly people are using it in sort of the creative pursuits, email marketing, video scripts, those kinds of things. But I think it's this process stuff that is going to have the biggest gain. I think the process stuff like that is going to be the biggest gains. And I think the other place is, and we've got a couple of people who are going to be talking about this at the AI Lab, where they've taken just sort of drudge work that has to be done, that's really, really important, that needs to be done. Building calendars for activities, building movies for activities that can take hours. And it's stuff that AI can do in moments and free up people to go do people stuff. Yep. So I really like that a lot.
Yeah. And with that, one thing that we are doing with Claude, at least, is if we have, similarly to the calendar, if we have something that we need to create, a document, and we know everything that needs to go into the document, how it needs to be written, we can just upload a document that we've done before or the reference document from the past. And then we can say, hey, we want we want all these new things in it. Here's the details. Can you take that and do it in the same format that we had this old document in, with the same general language and everything? And yeah, in an instant it's done, and you're not sitting there typing on Word and creating your big PDF. You're able to just do it instantly, put it in, and then go and refine that after the fact. So you're saving much more time.
Yeah. Do you ever worry? This is the thing I worry about a little bit with that kind of thing. I worry about that it's going to make my mind too lazy.
I don't worry about it. I don't worry that it's going to make me too lazy necessarily. I think my biggest worry with AI broadly, just in the field or within the company, is that we aren't going to use it in the way that I think we should. We're going to use it in a way where we're trying to replace our tasks instead of speed up the task. If we're going to write a document, we're going to replace it, and we're just going to say, hey, write this whole thing. And then we're going to take it and we're going to just drop it in and say that it's right, which is not true. We want to, like I said, use a reference document or something, get that to where the AI understands what we want. It plugs in the information. We review it thoroughly. We edit it, and then we distribute it. So we didn't do all the work, but all of those human elements and the things that we need to make sure right as an organization are still there. So yeah, that's my worry, is that we're just going to take it and go out the door.
Yeah, I really like that a lot, because what I think, let me see if I can paraphrase this a little bit. What you're saying is the concern is that we get comfortable that what the AI produces is good enough, and good enough should never be the standard.
Yeah, and we don't want the human element lost. Like I can't put everything I'm doing into GPT or Claude and just use it, because it doesn't have the same, like for our brand. I write mostly everything myself. It's not going to be able to recreate all that. And so everything that's written, that's out there, that's copy new, is mostly written by me. It's not going to be able to recreate that. And then we're going to get off, and it's going to be odd. So yeah,
it's one of the things that's interesting is that I've talked to some marketing agencies, and they have some legitimate concerns that operators are going to say, I can just use AI to replace my whole marketing team to write my blog posts and my emails and my social media posts and those kinds of things. And I think that you can certainly do that. I mean, you can go to Instagram or YouTube and find people who teach you how to do that. The problem is they all sound the same. When I I did an initial set of sequences for emails marketing, the Foresight Lab. And even though I went through and tweaked them, they frankly didn't perform very well. They were boring because they were all the same. And so now I'm handcrafting them. And once in a while, I'll take an idea and put it into ChatGPT to help me flesh it out. But the human element is so important.
Yeah. And yeah, the other thing is I would not want, a marketing team replaced by AI, obviously.
Yeah.
We can tell that from talking, but the other part of it is that's because I want that same marketing team, if we grow, to not have to grow linearly, so if I add X amount of communities and I would normally need 4 more staff members at this rate, if we use AI correctly, I may need half that, because the workloads may be shifted enough to where we're running so efficiently on what we need that we don't need to add that extra body,
Yep. Yeah. No question about it. The other area that we haven't really talked about, and I don't know whether you're spending a lot of time on this yet. I know it'll ultimately be a part of nearly every senior living community, is the ability to use data more efficiently. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, we aren't doing much of it. Our big thing with data right now was just getting the platform that is going to communicate that in the best way and allow us to access it easiest. So we have Senior IQ from Yardi. That's what we use. And so as it relates to AI and the visualization of that data, we don't have anything there or data insights with it yet. Our biggest focus was, let's get something in that just allows us to not have to go to Voyager. and comb through spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Let's get something that visualizes that for us. And then once that's done in place and utilized very well, then we'll add now let's use AI insights to it.
Yeah, I think that, I think we've made a lot of progress with our data to create dashboards that have given a lot better insight into all the data that's being collected. But I think even with those dashboards, there are a lot of things that we can learn from that data that are not obvious to the naked eye, and that AI can, a little bit like what we talked about with taking these contracts and putting it in and saying, okay, just what is it that I need to know that I don't know?
Yeah. And I think it can tell you a lot, like in anything, if we put a data set in and it's maybe something we're seeing in a community operationally. A question I could see asking is, from your perspective in the data that you're looking at, knowing what we do, what does this say about the way we're managing our team? What does that say, or what does it say about the culture of the community? Or do we have an apathetic culture? I mean, there's so many ways you can go, and not just deeper insights, but what does that say about the way we're doing what we're doing? I don't know. I think there's a lot of cool things to do with it. It's endless, but
yeah, it is endless. And I think part of the problem is figuring out which problems you're going to tackle, right? I mean, you talk about, well, what could we do better, right? So you start looking at activities, participation, and, could you even measure how enthusiastic people are about it, and use that to give you insights. I think that the next 5 years, 10 years are going to be so exciting with the things that AI will teach us. So, you've touched a little bit on sort of some of the pitfalls, dangers. Can you talk a little bit more about the things you worry about with AI?
Yeah, I'm most worried about how it's actually going to be used when we aren't looking, and
Yeah.
that's I can build a compliance bot, a sales bot, a revenue, but we can build everything that we would really need. But when it's actually in the community at large across, 2,000 employees, what does that look like, and how are we monitoring it? And is that something that we're giving them a tool to make things more efficient? But again, I'm going to use this apathetic culture because I think it's one you can find in a lot of different industries and businesses. But let's say we put that out there and we have an apathetic culture, and they go to this tool and now they're just supplementing it, and they're really not doing much at all. And they're just using it as a fail safe or a backstop of, well, I asked the bot. Well, I did ask the compliance bot that you guys built. So, I can't really be in that much trouble, right? That's a worry.
Yeah. And the other thing I guess I could see happening is you could use the bot to maybe look like you're doing work when you're not really doing it.
Yeah,
right. And so, and yet I think that the other thing I guess I see, so, my stepfather's been in the senior living community. I've talked about it a little bit, and I'm worried that he's not showering, and I think the community staff is coming in and asking him if he wants to shower, and his natural reaction to say no, and they say, well, resident choice. And I had some things happen that made me aware that this is a problem, and so I'm working on it. But I'm looking at that, and I'll be honest, I was pretty frustrated with the community because they should either be doing more to encourage him to shower, or they should be telling me about it so I can intervene. Yeah. And I look at that and I think, man, if I assume that somebody's at least documenting that they're asking, and it's a place where AI would come back, and you could train an AI tool to come back and say, hey, you've got a problem. You better go do something, because this could turn into a hospitalization, which is bad for, you look at all the ways it's bad, right? First off, it's the human side of it. Second side, the reputational side of it. Third side, you could be legally in trouble for that. So many things. And AI just becomes, I would argue on one hand, somebody should catch it, but you got 150 residents and, it's hard. And so you set up this tool to catch these things like that. It can be pretty amazing.
Yeah. And on one end, that's for really good operators or operators that really care and want to offer the best service they can, and they keep those standards tight down to the communities. They would love that and they'd use that. And on the other hand, the group that doesn't adopt that is a group that doesn't want that to be logged somewhere by AI.
Yeah, that's right.
For risk. And that's that flip side of it that becomes really, really at that point, what are you going to do for some of the people that are in management? So,
yeah. Well, I guess what I'm thinking, I'd love to have your thoughts on this. I think that as AI becomes more prevalent and we start using it for these kinds of things, we are going to find ourselves with companies like Milestone, where they've embraced AI as a way to create higher quality in everything they do, and companies that are pushing back on AI because it creates, if you will, too much transparency. And I think it'll show up in terms of occupancy and in terms of length of stay, in terms of staff and resident turnover. So I don't know. What do you think?
No, I think that's happening. I personally, our strategy is built on the foundation of something really simple. We want to be the best operator in the US. And we want to be the best that we can be within the next 5 years. It doesn't need to take us, an inordinate amount of time to do really well or to get to the point we want to get to. And what I see AI or technology and kind of this shift in senior living, I've only been in it a year now, right? Like I worked in it back when I was 19 in a community, and coming into it at this level now and being exposed to what I'm exposed to and hearing from others at conferences. The next 3 years, you're going to see a wave, I would say, and some people maybe this is uncomfortable. I don't know. Don't care. The next 3 years, if those of us that are adopting AI, adopting tech, doing the right thing, those operators will flourish, and the ones that don't will more than likely be outpaced at a rate that they can't make up with competitively. Because there's too many other things going on. Like unless those operators own all or many of their communities or a JV into it or something, then it's different. But for those of us that are third party and don't own all of our communities, that's a different landscape. We want to be as fiercely competitive as we can. And so we need to adopt AI, adopt technology, use it really well, and try to raise the standard of what we do to the highest extent that we can do it. Yeah. Because if not, we could get outpaced.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because I think that companies that are third-party managers have the ability to use AI to take their very limited resources and do massively amazing, better things with fewer resources, leaving a bigger margin, leaving investors happier, leaving families happier, leaving residents happier, leaving team members happier. I think it's a win-win-win for everybody. And I think, you guys are aggressively but cautiously and thoughtfully approaching it. And I think it'll pay huge dividends for you.
Yeah. No, and what you said is exactly why we're doing it at the rate we're doing it at. Like I said before, we can't scale linearly at the rate that we're going to onboard communities, with human capital. So we've got to figure out ways to run more efficiently and give our team more resources so that they aren't doing the same work that they did 5 years ago. They can be much more efficient now. Yeah, I totally agree.
Cool. Cayden, we're out of time. Thank you very much. Amazing conversation. I appreciate your passion for the industry, how you're moving Milestone forward, and just new, better thinking. It's very, very exciting. Jada, thank you for producing in the background. I about most of the time forget to say that, but I'm embarrassed when I do. And I look forward to seeing you at the AI Lab in a few weeks.
Yeah, and hey, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate it.
Hang on for just a minute after we go off the air, and I will see you all on Friday on Foresight TV.